Hello.
Good evening.
Hello, guys. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So, in the previous class, by some technical issue, I could not join it again through Zoom. Okay. So, we had started with the topic of automation and programmability, guys. So, we will continue the same in today's class and finish off. Okay. So, we understood why we need automation because currently, everywhere we see that our devices what we are using they are much capable enough that we can make use of automation and programmability to do our configuration. It is no more like we have to only make use of CLIs or any other monitoring tools. We can make use of the programming scripts to understand the information which is configured in the devices or to push some configuration into the devices and monitor them as well. So configuration as well as monitoring can be done by just some means of programming by writing some scripts and pushing it into the respective devices. So before the automation and programmability we understood the concept of traditional networking, how it used to happen. Okay, I had briefly discussed about traditional networking, like how does a router processes a packet when it receives on its interface. Okay, as soon as the router receives the packets on its interface, we understood the kind of task which is being involved to process this particular packet what it receives. That it has to go and check the destination IP address, where it is located, whether it has any information about the destination IP network, need to look into the routing table. After that, need to check the access list, then have to check the ARP table to get the information about the MAC, then need to encapsulate, then calculate. Before encapsulation you have to also do some kind of uh, IP checksum calculation because it has to modify the MAC, it has to do the ether layer to checksum calculation. So lot many tasks is being there before you actually forward the packet. So before forwarding you need to do a lot of processing. Okay, there is a lot of processing involved and it may lead to some sort of forwarding delay, I can say. Or every now and then their router is processing so many packets that it has to, we can say that everything is being done by each and every device who is sitting inside the network. Every router, every switch is involved in doing such task. And I can say that we have a distributed approach in the traditional networking. We are not having any other device in the network who will give you a brief idea about the entire picture, or who will just tell, okay, these are the devices, these are the links which are going up and down, these are the interfaces which are going up and down. So there is no centralized controller or a centralized device who can give you the entire statistics. Okay, which can give you, or which you can which can provide you with the entire statistics, because everything is being managed by each and every device at their individual level. Okay, so with automation, with the concept of software defined, where we will be making use of some programming concepts, but it is not so that we are moving away from our core networking concepts. The core networking concepts will remain the same. It is just how we can get smarter enough to, push the configuration and get the information about the devices. So when we are talking about programmability, when we are talking about software defined things, we are saying that we are trying to break this kind of distributed control or distributed manner of doing the task. Okay, so what we are going to now learn in the today's class is we are going to check with the concept of software defined networking. We'll also we'll understand what is an API and what is a REST API basically. We'll understand the different data models which is there, and the configuration management tools and the version control systems. A very important topic, guys, for understanding all this related to automation and programmability. This was one of the topic introduced in CCNA which was not there ever before. Okay, so let's dive into the SDN, software defined networking. We already understood what is the traditional networking. So whatever task I mentioned, maybe 10 to 11 tasks if I count in numbers. Now these tasks can be divided in different planes. So when we talk about software defined networking, we generally classify these tasks, or we just put them into these different boxes, I can say, or different planes. We have different control. We have a control plane, we have a data plane, and we have a management plane. So when I'm talking about control plane, I will be basically looking into running all the routing protocols, running the ARP, running the routing protocols and building the table, I can say, routing table, because you are expected to build the routing table from the routing protocols. You are trying to learn the MAC addresses, I can say. Okay, learning the MAC addresses as well. So all kind of learning the MAC, running the STP if you are using a switch. Then I can also say that you are also building your ARP table. So all kind of learning and running these processes is involved in the control plane. The job or the task is being assigned to this plane. The data plane is going to help you do the forwarding. This is a simple keyword to say, but it has a lot of other stuffs, like you need to check whether match the specific destination IP, destination MAC. Okay, so all kind of matching, whether to drop or whether to forward. So all kind of matching the destination address, encapsulation, I can say. You have to encapsulate it, you have to decapsulate it, all this kind of work which was done. And then to take the forwarding decision. Okay, taking the path what is being pushed by the control plane. So the control plane is going to push the information into the data plane. Okay, it is going to talk to the data plane that this is what I have learned, and now this will be required for you to take the routing path, or to take the MAC from the uh, or take the MAC address from the ARP table. So control plane is going to give you those information, and you are just going to do that particular thing and forward it. Okay, so in general we say forwarding, but that doesn't mean that only forwarding. It means a lot of process involved in it. And management is generally it is going to guide you related to how to access it. Okay, so how do you access, how do you telnet, SSH, network management stuff like using SNMPs, so and so forth. Okay, now we don't use SNMPs, we go with the automation. So there is something else which we are going to see. Okay, so you see that there is a single brain, or we will say that there is a controller, there will be a centralized device where we are going to shift the control plane and the data plane. We are going to separate it. Okay, so there is a separation of these two planes. Okay, the control plane will be into one of the device which we will name it as a controller, and in SDN we say it as a SDN controller, because this controller is going to have the control plane. And all your network device like your router, your switch, your firewall, whatever devices you want to manage or where you want to push your information, that is only going to have its data plane. So no more of intelligence you will find when you are approaching in this kind of SDN solutions. Okay, this solution generally you will find it in the data center, guys. Okay, this kind of SDN solution, where are we using it? We are using it in a data center. So what are we using for an enterprise or a campus? What design what we make? There we use SD WAN, SD access, all these things. Okay, so here you will find that this is still a very there is still a lot of scope, lot of opportunities, lot of growth which is happening in SDN. Okay, so you will find the controller will manage the control plane, and it is going to interact with the data plane for forwarding or for pushing this information. And data planes are nothing but they are going to be your same old routers and switches, but now with not much of intelligence, only doing whatever the controller says. So there is not of more of a brain they will involve to process or to learn about all other things. I hope this thing is clear. This was already discussed in my previous class, but I still tried to just give you a brief recap. I then give you this in figure to understand how it looks like. Okay, so here is a controller. So you see it manages the control plane. So there is a two separate plane, and what you see here is your actual devices like your switches and routers, which is making use of the data plane. So you see that they are interacting, the controller is interacting with the data plane, and there will be somebody who will control or who will interact with the controller also. Maybe you can say that you want to retrieve some information from the controller, get some statistics, want to understand how many networks are there, or what is the topology which is there in the network, or get information about the VLANs, or you want to create some VLANs. Okay, so for that case, you will you will need again an interface, okay, which will be useful for the network administrator to get all the information. So to talk to the controller itself, you will need an interface, and the controller to talk with the devices, you will need an interface. Because how are they going to communicate? For that, we will learn about a special interface that we normally term it as a northbound API and the southbound API. Okay, now these API, this is very important, guys. You must have come across this term a lot many times, which is application programming interface. Okay, application programming interface, I can simply say that this interface is a simple virtual interface, or I can say it's a software interface. We cannot see it physically. This interface, it allows other application to access your application. Okay, so the interfaces which allow other applications to access your application is known as application programming interface. Okay, so before we go and dive into what about REST APIs, I said about that they are using the northbound and the southbound APIs. So when you are looking at in the figure, the controller is communicating with the data plane. Okay, the control plane is communicating with the data plane with the help of southbound API, also known as SBI. Okay, southbound API. So to controller, when it wants to communicate, it will make use of southbound APIs, and there are several southbound APIs. We will name it. Well, I'll tell you what are the different southbound APIs, as well as when we want to access the controller itself. Okay, we make use of GUI, but behind the GUI, again, we have APIs working. It is just for saying it is we can use GUI. Also, we can use other APIs in the form of, like, we can have a Python API, or a Java, or any other actual application which we can use. Okay, so this will be understood as, okay, so I can say that to get the information in this manner, so this will be known as the northbound API. Okay, the southbound is basically when you want to, when the control plane wants to communicate with the data plane, or you want to communicate with the devices which you're managing. That time you are going to make use of these APIs to talk. These are the interfaces, software interfaces. And when you have to give some information to the administrator, or understand some related information from the controller, you're making use of northbound APIs, which can be in the form of GUI, or it can be in the form of other APIs of using Python or Java or any other applications. These two are very important, guys, these two interfaces. Okay, I hope this is clear. Anyone has any issue in this? Any doubt, any questions on this, you can ask me. Is this fine so far?
Yes,
Hello?
it's
Okay. So having understood about APIs, now you would want to know what are these actual APIs. We have termed it as northbound and southbound as a generic term, but basically what API we are trying to address here. So here we are trying to address, okay, let me just scroll down. Okay. Now these are the southbound interfaces, like we have OpenFlow, Cisco Upflex, and Cisco API CEM. Now, basically, OpenFlow is something what we have. Like I can say that it is similar to like using a open daylight controller. Okay, now SDN controller, when we are talking about, let me say that since you are already having your infrastructure in place, okay, you currently have entirely your infrastructure, your hardware devices, like whatever you have purchased maybe a year back or 2 year back or 3 year back. Now you know that you want to implement SDN. So you would want to know what kind of changes I need to do with my existing hardware, or do I need to get some new hardware, or do I need to get some images of some hardware and install it in a virtual machine and then run it as a controller. Okay, because when you are talking about SDN controller, guys, there is a possibility that we have a actual controller which is a hardware, okay, and you have to go and get it, or you have to go and get all those hardware which supports software defined networking. That means your switch which supports open flow, okay, your routers which supports open flow. So you will need devices in order to understand software defined thing. You will need devices which supports those features. Now whether you will go and get it again, reinvest it, it is like you have to decide what kind of application you have. However, we have another approach that, let's say I don't want to go and actually shift entirely my system's entire infrastructure, and I still want to make use of some sort of SDN solution I want to apply to my current data center. What I can do is I can go and buy the Cisco APIC EM. It's a controller. Okay. Now this controller, I cannot say it is a pure form of SDN controller, because as we understood, as just now we understood that when we are talking about a controller in a purest form, we say that there has to be a separation between the control plane and the data plane. Okay. However, when we are talking about Cisco API CEM, here I cannot say that you will basically, you're going to basically remove all the data plane from your devices, and you're going to shift entirely the control plane in this. So you are basically not dividing or separating your control and data plane of your actual devices, but from the what was your objective of adding a controller was to get a entire overview at one go of your entire network, your information and configuration, as well as you want to push any changes to your system. Let's say you have a new hardware now and you want to do some configuration. So do you need any manual configuration? You will just have a script, and that script will be there in your server, and you will try to push it into your system, and then there has to be an automate configuration which should happen. So for monitoring or for having this kind of centralized approach, we say that we need this kind of controller. So whatever features we are talking about would be achieved with the help of these hardware. Okay, so you got to just go and download the iOS image maybe, and go and get the iOS image, install a virtual, maybe you have to install, if you want you can install it directly on your hardware, or you can go and create a virtual machine for, and that you can import your iOS image of this particular controller and start your SDN solution right away. Okay, so no majority changes in your system. You just need to go and get it done. The only thing is the requirement is very hefty over here when you are talking in terms of hardware. Okay, you may have to see that there are good amount of CPU, because since it's acting like a controller, you would have to have a good CPU, core CPU with good RAM and storage. Okay, so the hardware requirements is very heavy if whenever you want to go and run it over a virtual machine or on an actual hardware. Okay, but this is like an instant solution which you can implement in your center, data center. The only thing is here we are not talking about the control and the data plane in a purest manner, that we have separated. Now our actual devices are no more going to get uh, control, they are not going to run any protocols. That is not going to happen as such. They're going to run it. It is just that you have created the controller for your purpose what you wanted to. Okay, so these are going to be your southbound interfaces what you have. Okay, OpenFlow, open standard, then Cisco developed a similar kind of structure for OpenFlow. So that is why it is known as a Cisco UpFlex. And just now I talked about the APIC EM. Now, what can be your northbound interfaces? As I mentioned, the northbound interfaces, as there can be a GUI, or you can have some scripts, APIs. So as I already mentioned, you have a GUI or some scripts which is written in Python or Java or any other language. Okay, so that you can retrieve the information from the controller and thereby try to configure it. So here you can have anything in the northbound, and in the southbound we have all these things. Okay. So I hope this is understood, that which kind of interfaces we are using in our real applications. How do we actually configure our uh, controllers? Okay, which interfaces or which protocols we are using. I hope that is been clear. So this is the most popular approach these days we are using. Okay, because when you're using this, then to talk to the data plane becomes very easy with the help of telnet and SSH, because the main job of the controller, as we mentioned, we have our southbound interface. So which protocols, whatever protocols your hardware is supporting, telnet, SSH for remote access, you will be able to use those things easily. Okay, otherwise you need, if you go with the OpenFlow and other open daylight controllers, for that you will need these devices which will support these features of OpenFlow. It's an open standard developed by Linux. Okay, but still, when you want those switches and routers to support this thing, open daylight control or OpenFlow, you will need those features and those switches. Okay, so I don't know if you have heard about Mininet. Like, people people have done a lot of research and experimentation on Mininet. If you want, like, if you want to go and explore, you can check out this. Like, for an OpenFlow, you have to go and install. So this is like creating a virtual network. Mininet is going to create a virtual switches which will support OpenFlow, and then you can try to experiment in this particular Mininet software. Okay, this is going to create a virtual network. Now, having understood that these are the interfaces which we talk about, okay, also these are using APIs. Now, these are the interfaces which are using APIs, and I just mentioned what is an API. A very famous API which we are going to talk, okay, which we are going to talk is about REST API. Okay, what are APIs? I already mentioned, and I already had drawn a diagram here stating where will be your API. So basically here I can say that your controller will be connected to an API, and from your API, you may be connected to a GUI user who is using a GUI, but behind the scene there is an API, as well as I mentioned about the Python script or the JavaScript. Okay, so there is an API, okay, which will be controlled by either a GUI or some scripts which are there, or some other application. Okay, so what are these northbound and southbound APIs? Because when you're going to use OpenFlow, okay, when you will use OpenFlow, there also you will have certain APIs which will be there for communication, right? So how do we use these APIs, or which APIs are popularly used in software defined networking? And they are nothing but REST APIs. Okay, REST API is a very standard approach to, you know, develop or to have your SDN controllers. Now, what is REST? The REST stands for representational state transfer. Representational state transfer. Representational is going to be understood as something which you represent, like, say, a resource. Okay, representation means you are going to represent a resource. A resource can be anything, like any object, any information related to your network. Okay, so representation, the basic meaning is going to be just, you know, trying to represent some resource. and your state transfer is going to be how you're able to transfer the information, okay, within that complete operation, how you're going to transfer that information. State is, I can say, that particular information transfer. Now, as you can see in the slide, I have mentioned something about HTTP. Okay. Now it makes use of HTTP to send and receive your messages. Okay, because they are trying to communicate, the controller is communicating with the networking devices, your users or your APIs are communicating with the controller. So what kind of messages they send? They send HTTP messages, which is popularly used for web communication. When you want to access a web page, you make use of HTTP. So you as a client, you're sitting here, you are using a server, a web server, and you're putting a request that I want to access a specific page. So you are trying to put HTTP get message, get request message, that I am requesting you to put up a web page which I want. In a response to this, okay, so this is your server, web server. In a response to this, you get the resource which is located into the server. Okay, just now, as I mentioned, we are trying to understand the resource. Now, in the web page, the resource is going to be like your HTML page. It can be your picture. It can be any object which is there in the server, stored in the form of the web manner. So here you get a response. I can say these are the messages. So get request, get response. These are the messages which is used by the web browsers or web communication, where you have a client server model. And in the client server model, when you're using this HTTP, similarly, we can leverage this to talk with our networking devices. Okay, so to talk to our networking devices now, like the controller and the networking devices, we are making use of the same HTTP messages. So getting HTTP get means you're going to retrieve, you want to request for some information and put and post. So there are a lot of messages. You have get, you have put, post, delete. Okay, these are the different messages which we say is exchanged in during the HTTP communication. Okay, so in this case, now for example, this was a web browser scenario. Now for us, it is going to be what? For a device, it would be like the device would access for, or it will request for some VLAN information, okay, some database information, and then we have to get a response. Now how is the response you are going to achieve or you're going to receive? The response you're going to receive in the format which is defined by JSON and XML. Okay, these are the two supporting formats how your request reply is going, or how your reply is going to come. Okay, because let's say you want to say that you want to get a request as show VLAN database. Okay, show VLAN database you want to put. And now when you want a response, so that response will be formatted in a specific way. Because if you have to see that we developed CLI, we are using CLI for configuration purpose as well as for monitoring purpose. We just write the show command, we make use of debug commands. The kind of format what these commands give you over a CLI is a very different than what you will be using for automation purpose. Because when you just go and write show IP route, or you go and write show VLAN information, the kind of format what it uses is very different. They are not using the same format, and the format what it uses is understood for us as a human being. But that format is not going to be supported when you are going to write a script. Okay, when you want to write a script, when you want to pass some configuration information or some information to retrieve the list, whatever you want to say, let's say show VLAN. So you want to retrieve this information. So it will not be understood in that similar manner how we just go and run on our CLI. So this is a very big difference, guys, because we are entirely shifting from CLI to APIs. Okay, so for CLI, it was very simple that we used to go and write a command and then hit enter. And then if there was no error, we used to get an empty line in the next, you know, that to just make you understand that there is no error. Okay, if there was an error, it used to show that there is a error in so and so line or in that particular command. So in CLI, when we are configuring, we are not getting any clear feedback that our configuration has been accepted, because if it runs successfully, you enter it and you hit enter and you just see that there is no message which has popped up. That means my command has taken up successfully. If there is an error, it will show you that this is not the appropriate command. So with this CLI, as well as when you use the show commands or the debug commands, the kind of messages what you see on the screen of the CLI, the format is very different. Okay, and it was not developed in the few for the from the point of view in future that we are going to use the scripting or automation. So CLI was developed for humans, for us to understand, for us to configure. So at present, whatever format what you see with the show commands, that cannot be just taken up and used for automation. It needs to be formatted in a very proper manner so that we can make use of scripting to automate our steps or automate our processes. So there we see that if you put up a show request HTTP get VLAN information, let's say, so the reply would come in a proper format, which we say it as a JSON or a XML format. These are the two widely used formats, guys, specifically JSON. Okay, so when your controller will receive this information, so here you need to think like, now this was a client server model. Now you need to think like this as a, that you're putting the information to your controller, and here you are sitting as a network administrator. Okay, and you're putting the get messages and you will have a get reply. Okay, now how do you send a web request? Just just think over it. It is going to be very easy if you understand how the web communication happens. In a web communication, if a client has to request a specific web page, it need to make use of a URL, that is a uniform resource locator. So you got to type HTTPS. Even if you don't type it, you just go and type name of Google or something else. It takes a specific format. Okay, a specific format which we say it as a URL, so that it helps you identify what information you have come to request. Okay, what information you are requesting for. So even in this case, we are going to make use of URL to request our information, which will be like you will have HTTPS. Now in this case, again, you may have followed with your IP address or the name of the host, followed by what kind of API you're using, which version you're using. There can be a lot of information. Then whether you are wanting to get an ARP information or a VLAN information, VLAN database, which kind of database you want to access, which objects. Because when we say here, we talk about objects, that we are going to take get information about so and so objects. And objects are going to be nothing but, objects are going to be simply like your interface. When you are putting an interface to a, let's say the servers are talking to your routers or to the switches. So when they are talking to this, so they may have to ask that, get the status of the interface, that what is the status of my interface, router interface, whether it is up or whether it is down. And likewise, this kind of information has to be represented. The request will go in the form of a URL. So reply is nothing but it is a return. When you are getting a reply, you're basically getting the information about the objects. In programming, we talk a lot more about object oriented stuff, and the object in this case is going to be simply like, as I said, your interfaces, router interfaces, and any other information which you want to take it from the devices. Okay, so let's look into the format, guys, how the format of JSON looks like, XML format, how does it looks like? Because as I mentioned, we have to understand these data formats so that we can understand the information what it is trying to give us. Okay, so I hope this is understood about the REST APIs. Now let us understand these formats with some example. So here are the three data formats. We have three data formats: XML, JSON, and YAML. These three formats are being widely used. Okay. So XML, because it is similar to like using HTML. Now those who are having some knowledge about HTML, they could relate this with the example. Now here is an example in XML. You will see that often this XML, the commands will look like tags. This is what you see, the larger than and lesser than sign, or the greater than or lesser than sign. These signs which you see is basically what you see. They are known as tags, HTML tags. Okay, so you always have an opening and a closing tag. So you will find that your router is a tag which is used, and then there is a name started with the name. We have the name, and then you have to end with the same tag. Okay, so you need to start and end with the same tag. Then we have a vendor. Then again you see the vendor name, and then again we are closing with the vendor tag. Again starting the tag with the type, it's virtual, and ending with the type tag. And here you complete one information about one router. Okay, so this is one object. The second object, which is again a router, but then again you have a different name, 1921, closing with the tag name, a vendor, Cisco, type, hardware, and again closing with the router tag, and the devices tag. If you have to start with the devices tag, which I have not started here. Okay, so this is how you will define. You have to define the tags, and you see there is some lot of overhead. Okay, even to represent some this information, this router tags which you have to start, you have to close, then another tag, another information, again you need to start, again you have to close, right? So this is how you will read the information, or you will understand the information about your device. Or even if you want to write a script in XML, you got to write it in this manner. On the other manner, you see JSON. Now, how is this different? Here we saw that they are making use of this less than greater than sign, and making use of the tag, whatever tag you want to put here. Now, for the same example, you will see that here it is making use of curly brackets to denote the object. So now there is one curly bracket which is starting here, okay, and it has its end over here, okay. So this is like it makes use of curly braces, and you will find that a square bracket is used to put down the list. Okay, it is going to put down the information in the form of a list. So list, you will see that whenever a list has to start, it will start with the square bracket. Okay, and also you will find that then again another object is being created with the name. Whatever you find the name or the string, they will be in double quotes. Okay, unlike what we saw here. So here you will find that what you're defining as a string or any name, that needs to be defined in double quotes. So curly braces, square brackets, and quotes. You need to remember this thing when you want to write the script. So again, you got the name, you got the vendor, you got the type, you close this bracket, and the second object is being separated by a comma. So you make use of commas to separate your objects. Here you could see that we have to start with the same tag. This was a second object and we need to start with the same thing. Here you want to list down the second object. So you will start with again a curly bracket, and the objects are being separated with the help of commas. So again, you saw the name, the vendor, the type. So this particular brace needs to be closed. Then the square bracket needs to be closed. The devices bracket, this has to be closed. Okay, so you just need to look into the brackets that you are trying, you don't make mistakes, because there the kind of error which may happen while you program is going to happen only with the in with the kind of brackets you are using it properly or no, or the kind of editor you are using that helps you understand that you have an opening and a closing bracket. There is the error is going to happen in that manner only. Okay, so you're trying to remove some overhead which you saw in XML. And then YAML, I can simply say that it is going to be a superset of JSON. It is an extended version of JSON. Okay, extended version, where you will find that you are making this is as very simple, writing in the form of a key and a pair. Okay, in a form of a key and a pair, and you make use of these colon. Okay, you make use of this colon, and when you want to define list, like we defined list here in the with the help of square bracket, here when you want to define list, you need to just write hyphen. Okay, just by writing hyphens you can list down all the list. Only important thing what you got to take care is the indentation. Indentation, guys, is a very important thing in this when you want to program it. It's not that you have to give a tab, it is an actual space which you need to take care when you are trying to write in YAML. Okay, so very simple to understand. The format is very simple when you're making use of YAML. Okay, the only thing where you will fall into you will face problem is going to be the indentation. Okay, so again, for that you can make use of a good editors rather than using any kind of notepad or anything else. Make use of a good editors like Visual Studio Code, etc., so that you can by default have different colors to identify their indentations. Okay, and one more good feature of YAML is that you can make use of commenting. Okay, the way we have comments in Python and all, hash. Okay, we can make use of this to help others and understand what is your code about. Or as we have a normal practice of commenting in normal programming languages, we can also make use of hash to give comments in this thing, which is missing in JSON and XML. So popularly JSON and YAML are being used when you are as a data format. Okay, these are the data formats. So when you send any request, the reply which you see when you're talking, making use of automation, you would basically use this JSON or YAML as a data format. I hope this thing has been clear. This information is understood. Guys, is it clear?
Yes, it's clear.
All right, great. Now, if you are clear about this, the next topic what we are going to move is related to device programmability. Let me just clear this. Okay. There is also something known as YANG, which is a data model. Now, what is this? Now, we talked about the data format, the JSON, XML, and they were the data formats. Okay. Now, what is the data model? Data model is going to describe what you can configure and monitor on the networking devices. I can similar say that similar to this is similar to SNMP, Simple Network Management Protocol, where you simply define your information base, management information base, and you can have, monitoring. But here the only thing is that in SNMP, okay, just to give you a small overview about SNMP, which is your network management protocol. So in this case, when you want to monitor thousands and thousands of routers, your devices, your host, you need a management protocol. You will not try, or you will not like to basically use a CLI in each and every system you will go and try to run and see the stuff. Okay, so there is a single simple network management protocol which will help you for monitoring all your devices. Okay, for monitoring purposes we use in our traditional networking setup, or in our scenario traditional networking scenario, we make use of this SNMP. So what we have is we have an SNMP manager and a SNMP client. Okay, we have a manager which will be a software which you will install it. Okay, it's a software which you will install it in your system or on a server, and you will have an SNMP agent which you will be installing in your devices which you want to manage. Okay, that means your router or switches. So whatever the manager requests the information, or it can pull the information from the device, that get me the information about so and so thing. So it's kind of polling which will happen. Okay, the manager and the client. So this is a server, I can say, or a computer system where your manager is sitting, and there is your device which has installed an SNMP agent. Okay, so the manager can regularly poll in some intervals of time, some minutes. Okay, so polling is done. Through polling, you try to get some information. Okay, or you may ask some information from the manager to get some script, to get some information, or try to push some information about your traffic analysis. Let's say what kind of traffic is passing, what kind of statistics you see, what is the temperature maintained by the interfaces, are they at optimum level. All those things can be, you can poll it, and then this particular agent is going to send you those information, and you are going to create a database out of it. Okay, so we say that we are making use of a database to store all your information. So at the 11th hour or at the 12th hour, if something happens, we have all this information about the database, which keeps a check of your entire network, what has happened. So after every specific time, you can get information about what you want. So similar to SNMP, we have this Yang model, but Yang model can be used for understanding what you want to configure as well as monitor. SNMP, I cannot say it is purely used for configuration purpose, but we see basically we use SNMP for monitoring purpose. So Yang is similar to SNMP, but here we can configure, and the two common data, the data models which it supports is the common data model, which is industry-wide standard Yang models from organizations like IETF and IEEE, or the vendor-specific models. Okay, it uses a hierarchical tree structure similar to XML. There is a clear distinction between the configuration data and the state information. Okay, so this is about the data model, Yang data model. And this is important, guys, when you are going and talking towards device programmability, because you will come across the terms like netconf, restconf, and gRPC. Now, this may be new for few of you, that what I am talking about, these are nothing but these are device programmability tools. Okay, device programmability, because you would want this thing to run, and this is going to support Yang model. Okay, for programmability you will need this thing, and for that you will need the Yang model. This is very much required in order to run or understand all the three things: netconf, restconf, and Google remote procedure calls. So when you want to program it, you would need these three tools, and these three tools basically support, or they run with the help of Yang data model. Okay, so this was about the data model. The last thing what we are going to see is related to configuration management tools. Okay, that netconf, restconf, and gRPC, what I talked about, was related to device programmability. Like ideally we understood what kind of formats are there, what kind of data models are there, which kind of device programmability tool you're using. Because if you're say using restconf, so you're basically making use of REST APIs only. Okay, netconf is basically developed over XML, or I can say it uses XML. Okay, when I talked about netconf or restconf and your gRPC for device programmability, this is basically making use of XMLs. Okay, this will make use of your REST API, what we have talked about. It has a similar structure, and gRPC is going to be like a more sophisticated manner of having a remote procedure call. Okay, in a remote procedure call is simple as I can say that you are trying to run procedures remotely over other computers. The way we run our procedures, like we run our softwares, we try to do some computation, we give instructions to a computer for doing starting any application, doing some programming. That procedures are nothing but instructions. So when you want to remotely do it, okay, remotely, so we say that it is a, you're trying to control the or give instructions to other applications on other computers. So we say that it is a remote procedure call, and Google has made it so it is an open standard again, which we can use it for device programmability. Okay. Now, similar to that, we have configuration management tools. Okay. Configuration management tools are going to help you achieve your actual term automation. We want to automate. We want to do things at a very quick speed for basically to have scalability. Okay, when we want scalability, we know what are the challenges what we encounter when we scale our networks. We cannot manually increase our team and achieve scalability in devices so that everyone will take care of configuring it. And we know that there are some challenges that when you are trying to do manually, there is possibility that one or two device you can go and do manually, else there is going to be a kind of drift. There is going to be a kind of error. We say human errors. Okay, so when you go for scalability, you see that there are a lot of challenges which you need to take care. So for that you need automation, that you simply can start a new device by pushing the script automatically. You just need to say that so and so thing I want to configure, and then give it to the tool, and the tool will itself do your configuration stuff. Okay, so you're basically involving a tool through which you're going to make things automate. Okay, get the information, uh, retrieve the information or do some configuration. Okay, so you are making use of tools. You're just going to tell the tool that, see, I want so and so thing in so and so manner, and the tool is now going to get the job done for you. Okay, so here we have two types of tools. One is the agent based tool and the agentless tool. Okay, the agent based tool means what? You got to install the agent on those systems. Like I just talked about SNMP, that there was an SNMP manager and an SNMP agent. An SNMP agent we got to install over the system. Then only we can start the configuration or the communication. So when we are talking about agent based tools, okay, so you have one server and there are multiple clients, let's say, connected to this: client 1, client 2, client 3. Okay, so in all the clients systems you got to install the agents, client agents I will say. Okay, and here your server agents will be there. So before you actually start the communication or configuration, you got to install this thing. Okay, so we have two popular examples, Puppet and Chef. For agentless, this is very good one, the Ansible. You can just start right away. You don't need to go and install anything on the client systems. You just need to start this by downloading it, and you can start accessing this tool right away. So configuration management tools are nothing but the tools who are actually going to do the task for you by automating things. You can configure at a time, maybe let's say 10 routers, 100 routers. You can just push the script and your tool is going to get the work done for you. Version control, why I talked about the version control? Because initially the way of working was that you keep a configuration file, then your team has been, because a team of people are working on a specific network. So then you got to share that configuration file with one of your friend or your teammate, and then he is going to create something. So there was a lot of issue with the help of that, which was the new current configuration file or the latest configuration file. Okay, so then we understood that there has to be a common place where I can push up all my files, and every team member can have the access of those files. And with the help of version control, numbering, okay, we can understand which one is the latest one. Okay, so we make use of GitLab for storing all your configuration files, as well as taking the control of the versions of the similar files to understand which one is your latest, and then accordingly help you push the script to your system. So this was all related to software defined networking and some basics concept of configuration or programmability. There is a lot more, guys, and we actually run a full-fledged course on automation, most of you are aware of, but those are not aware of it, you got to understand that we have a separate course on automation where we actually teach you how to write the script, how to understand the JSON format, the other formats. So more of information about what I said today about APIs in technical terms, more of details. When can we say an API is an API? There are some set of constraints that I can say that this is an API. So there are a lot of technical things which we speak and we actually do it hands on. If you are interested, do let us know. And this is all about software programmability into networking. If anyone has any doubt, we can take up the questions. In my tomorrow's class, we are going to talk about virtualization, containerization, okay, and some wireless principle. That is going to be our last session, okay. Virtualization concept, containerization, some short note related to cloud computing in brief, very brief. And the last topic which we are left with, wireless. So WPA, wireless principles, we are going to discuss that. Okay. If you have any questions, guys, let me know. I'll be there to take it.
You said that after this class you will take the class for the VPN where you are going to explain the IPsec and
Okay. Okay. So I'll take the
VPN
IPsec
tunneling
tunneling.
concept.
Okay. Yeah. I'll take the
Ma'am.
IPsec tunneling. So maybe I'll take one more lecture for that.
Yes, ma'am.
So yeah, Wednesday or Thursday I will take it. Tomorrow I'm definitely taking it for all the these topics. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Wednesday or Thursday I will have a lecture. So you just let me know any other thing or topic which you want me to, because this was there. I know, I remember that we have to take this as a configuration. Even GRE I'll show you, and IPsec tunneling
Okay,
I'll show.
ma'am.
Yeah. If possible, I will also try to show you this Ansible thing on GNS3. But for that, you got to install, I'll show you, but you got to install GNS3 if your hardware has that much of capability, like minimum, if you have 8 GB RAM, then it is great to work with. Okay, I have it in my system, so I'll show you some sort of automation also. How do we actually do some automation? A glimpse of it I'll show you. So I'll keep this configuration of Ansible stuff and IPsec on one of my other lecture. And tomorrow we'll wind up with the theoretical, because all these things are theoretical concepts. So we'll finish off with this.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay, so no doubts, no questions. Thank you all so much. Okay, for the CCNA exam, all these topics we have just to know, like concepts and definition or something else. See, concepts and definitions are required, as well as the configuration. What we have seen in our packet tracer, we have run different scenarios for subnetting, for routing protocols, lot many things we have done in the for telnet, SSH. So even those scenarios will be given to you, and you got to understand those, like, thing. They may give you a snippet that this is the scenario where the user has configured so and so command. So do you think that this is going to exist or not? What kind of VLAN information will be there? So those packet tracer is very much required for you to, run the scenarios, develop a network, and check whether your routing have been configured or no, or your tables have been updated or no. So you will need concepts, plus you will need the packet tracers to be, those packet tracer labs to be practiced well. Okay. Yep. Welcome. Okay, guys. Thank you so much. Bye bye. Good night.
Good night, ma'am.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.